Armscor U is designed to get you up to speed with short videos so you know how to best frame up a conversation with a customer about quality Rock Island Armory firearms. Good afternoon from Missouri, and good morning if you're on the West Coast, good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. I am John McLean, National Training Manager with Armscor and Rock Island Armory, and Armscor U, this go around, we're going to be talking about the TM22 line of rifles. Now, note that TM22, the original name of TM, stood for totally metal because it was a 22 long rifle that from front to back was completely made of metal. That has since changed, but the name remains the same with like a little tag at the end of it. So we'll obviously get into that a little bit here. Make sure, obviously, promotions still active, and one of the promotions is for the TM22, which I believe is if you buy a TM22, or if your customer buys a TM22, they can get a 25-round magazine for free. They are a proprietary magazine, but they work, so we'll just leave it at that. Now, let's get into the rifles. So the first slide here that you can see is actually the original TM22. So this is when we first released it. It stands for totally metal from front to back. We made an 18-inch barrel version and a 20-inch barrel version. The only thing that was different about it was just how long the barrel was. Okay, the forend was the same size and length, and so was the buttstock and all that kind of stuff. So the selling points of this rifle, one is the fact that it's completely metal for me. You know, I know that I used to be a kid that if you could just leave me in a locked room with concrete and given enough time, I could find a way to break the concrete. I didn't need tools or anything like that, right? And a lot of the 22 rifles that are out there, they've got metal components, but they're either some polymer, some wood, some plastic, or anything like that. Meaning that you give a kid long enough, he's probably going to find a way to break it. And then if he's an active kid, like getting into hunting and stuff like that, where he's going out into the properties and hiking with it and all that kind of stuff, there's an even more likelihood that something could crack or break or anything like that. So I like the fact that it was totally metal because it's about as tough as you can make it without, you know, getting into like titanium and stuff like that, right? So that was one great thing that I loved about it was the fact that it's completely metal. The other thing, well, there's a couple things I like about it, and we're going to talk about it. One is that it has the M-LOK compatibility on the forend. So for those that want to use a rifle to help teach a brand new shooter the concept of trigger control, you know, firearm safety and all that kind of stuff, M-LOK is great because there's so many aftermarket accessories there to add rails. Therefore, you can add things like a bipod and a flashlight, you know, all that kind of cool stuff. But for me, the biggest thing was always a bipod. By putting a bipod on a 22 caliber rifle, you can literally just have a kid, even if they can't physically hold the rifle up, still be able to get behind the rifle and shoot some rounds and hit targets without having to exert much physical effort, okay? Another plus side to this being completely metal was how, I'm not going to say heavy because it's not that it's a heavy gun, but it is heavier than most 22 rifles out there. It means that the felt recoil and the movement of the rifle as that junior shooter or beginner shooter shoots is almost non-existent because the rifle is so heavy. It negates a lot of any sort of recoil or movement or anything like that, okay? Comes with 10-round magazines. We have 15 and 25-round magazines available. I think for a beginner shooter, 10 is perfect because it gives them some time to shoot. And then what I tend to do is I will have them load that magazine as I talk with them and instruct them a little bit more. Now, it does come with a fixed aluminum stock, as you can see in this picture. However, there's a castle nut on the back of that stock, and you can remove that stock and install a commercial-sized buffer tube so you can put an adjustable stock on if you choose to. We went with an aluminum stock because it was totally metal, and we can't have plastic pieces like an adjustable stock and still call it totally metal, right? The grip that comes with its stock is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you chose to do so, whether or not there's another company you like, or maybe you like to have like the little finger grooves and stuff in your grip, then you can run that. It interchangeable with most AR style pistol grips. The last thing that I will say about this rifle that is amazing for brand new shooters is how light the trigger pull is. 2 to 3.5 pounds is probably about right. And not only is it a nice light trigger pull, but I mean, it's almost so light, but it kind of has this rolling trigger, as I like to call it. So like there's those triggers where you pull back and then there's like a definitive wall. And that wall happens, and the next thing you know, you have to put enough force for it to kind of break on you, right? So the trigger break. The thing I like about the TM22, especially when it comes to teaching a brand new shooter trigger control, is that there's a wall, but it's not a definitive wall that is super, super stiff, and then the shooter has to exert an excessive amount of force to get through it. Rather, this one kind of gets a little bit of resistance, and then as you just pull through that resistance, the gun goes off. So it really helps brand new shooters kind of get that surprise shot that we always talk about, right? The gun should almost surprise you when it goes off. That's how we know that we're not flinching or anticipating shots. And this trigger, for me, teaching brand new shooters, junior shooters, anything like that, is phenomenal at doing that, okay? Not to mention, there's also a plus for now that I own a suppressor. I love the fact that this rifle has a threaded barrel already on it, 1/28. So it will fit and is ready to receive most suppressors that are rated for 22 long rifle. Obviously, you wouldn't want to use a 223 can because that would just dirty it up faster than it needs to. But the fact that it already comes with a threaded barrel, to me, as a suppressor owner, is another fantastic selling point for this particular firearm. Now, we get to this, the TM22 Realtree Timber. So everything about the rifle is exactly the same except for two things. Well, three according to this picture. One is that the pistol grip is a little bit different. The second thing you'll notice is that the forend extends way further out, almost to the end of the barrel. Reason for that is that we want to cover as much of the firearm as possible with the Realtree timber camo pattern, so we needed to extend the foregrip or the handguard as far as we could. Still have the threaded barrel, so you can still throw a suppressor on the end of this bad boy. And the other thing you'll notice is that this firearm will come with a Vortex Strike Fire red dot. So this is a package that is literally going to be able to pull out of the box, throw the red dot on it, go zero the rifle, and then take it out small game hunting. You want to go squirrel hunting or, prairie dogging or anything like that. Like, whatever it is that you want to shoot as far as small game goes, you can do it with this rifle pretty much straight out of the box. Give or take, obviously, a few rounds to zero it in. But again, phenomenal rifle. I absolutely love it. And again, we talked about the fact that, when you got a kid that is active in the outdoor world, they're going hunting, they're climbing up tree stands, they're, whatever. Just a lot of bumping is going on with the firearm. And especially if you're doing it in the wintertime, where like here in Missouri, it can actually snow and get below freezing and all that kind of stuff. Well, if you're out in that kind of environment with something like polymer, it can become brittle and then eventually crack. And if you crack something like a firearm, it's kind of a pain in the butt to replace, right? Because we've got serialized numbers and parts and all that kind of stuff. Whereas this being all metal, the biggest complaint you're going to have is that the metal gets cold. But it'll last. So this is where we had the change. It's no longer totally metal. Instead, we have the TM22 Feather rifle. So this firearm is not totally metal, as you can tell. As a matter of fact, it's almost the complete opposite. It's going to be as much polymer as possible, and this was to help lower the cost of the firearm pretty drastically compared to its all-metal brother. Another thing that you'll notice there is that it has the A2 style grip and rear sight on the back of the rifle, and an A2 style front sight on the barrel. Other than and an adjustable stock. This one will come with an adjustable stock on it already, instead of it being fixed, because again, it's not totally metal, so we can throw some plastic parts on here, okay? The magazines are also going to be polymer, and I don't believe that the metal magazines will run in the feather. Okay, so you will have to buy the polymer magazines for the polymer style TM22 rifle. However, that's not necessarily a bad thing because the cost for the polymer magazines is also drastically less than the all metal version for the original TM22. So it really just kind of depends on what it is you're looking for. Other than that, these two firearms are pretty much absolutely identical in the fact that you've got a threaded barrel, a 10 round magazine plus 15 and 25 round mags available, that nice 2 to 3.5 pound trigger pull, interchangeable AR style pistol grip. You can swap out the collapsible buttstock if you want to, if you don't like that particular version. The only thing that I see is that maybe you just wanted a rail so you can throw a red dot sight on there, but I do believe that the grip, the A2 style grip, is removable. So that is going to be the TM22 feather rifle. And with that being said, we're going to say that the word for the day is threaded for the threaded barrel, 1/2x28 for the TM22 rifles. And we'll let that big truck pass on by because I'm sure you can hear it. With that being said, again, I am John McLean, National Training Manager with Armscor in Rock Island. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, please feel free to contact me at johnmclean@armscor.com. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Armscor U, and I look forward to chatting with you on the next one. Don't forget to follow along to the Open Action Podcast with John McLean, brought to you by Armscor Ammunition.